Good morning. Today we're looking at lesson 3.1, which is solving one-step equations. First, we're going to look at what's the inverse, or operations that undo each other. Sometimes we say these are the opposite. Oops, I can't spell. Let's try that again. Opposite. The opposite of each other. So the inverse, or something that would undo adding something, would just be the opposite or subtracting. Same with subtraction. The opposite of subtraction then is addition, or subtraction if you want to keep the same tenses here. Then the opposite of multiplication is division. You can look at your order of operations, the two that are together, multiplication and division. So the opposite of division is multiplication. And then last, this one's a little bit tricky. To undo a fraction, I had a couple people say it might be a decimal, it might be a percent, but both of these are actually the same way of writing a fraction. They mean the same thing. So for example, if I had the fraction 1/2, a decimal of that same thing would be 0.5, a percent would be 50%. If I had a piece of pizza, or a pizza, and I asked you for half of your pizza, wouldn't be that the same as giving you 0.5 of the pizza, or 50% of the pizza? So those all really mean the same thing. The opposite of a fraction is really going to be multiplying by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal just means that we are flipping our fraction. So the reciprocal of 1/2 would just be 2/1. That would undo a fraction. So we're going to look at these here first. It says, what's the difference? This one says 2 divided by 3 times p equals 14. And this one says 2p divided by 3 equals 14. These really are the same thing, because isn't p really just p/1? So that's what they have over here. They just put the p on the top instead of next to it. So you can solve these the exact same way. You can treat these both as fractions. When we go to solve it, whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other. It's like lifting weights. If I'm going to go work out and I'm only lifting weights with this hand, this bicep's going to get really big, but this one's going to be really weak. So if I'm lifting, here's my weight, and I'm not lifting anything in this hand, this one's going to be really strong and this one's going to be really weak. I'm not going to be balanced. So whatever I do on one side, I have to do on both sides. So same with our equations. If I am going to get rid of this fraction by multiplying by the reciprocal, I have to do it to both sides. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is flipping it, 3/2 times 3/2. We know that 3/3 is really just 1, like this, 3/3, 3/3 is just 1, so that's 1. And 2/2, that's also just 1. Because it's just multiplying, it's the same as 3 times 2, which is 6, 3 times 2, which is 6. 6/6 is also just 1. So either way, it's going to all cancel out and just leave you with 1p or just p. And then we have this over here. 14 is the same as 14/1. So we're multiplying 14 times 3 will give us 42. And 1 times 2 is 2 on the bottom. So 42 divided by 2 is going to give us 21. Moving right along, this is the same thing, so we're not actually going to solve it. It's the same problem, just showing you the difference between the two. So next, solve our equation. Like we said, first thing is to draw our line. Then we're going to get rid of addition or subtraction first, then multiplication and division second. Some of you might be thinking, well, I know that some number plus 7 equals 10. Well, that number has to be 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. Yes, I know some of you can do it in your heads, but we need to follow a pattern so that when we get to more challenging problems, we already have a structure to use. So we need to get y by itself. We need to get rid of this positive 7. The opposite of positive 7 would be subtracting 7. 7 minus 7 is 0. so it's just left with y, and 10 minus 7 is 3. Same thing, draw your line down. We want to get a all by itself here. I see a subtraction, or minus 3.2. The opposite would be adding 3.2. Those eliminate. We have a equals, and we're subtracting here, different signs subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. 7 minus 3 is 4. But there's more negatives, so it's a negative 4.2. That's our answer. Couple more. This is where people get tricked up or confused. Some of you might be thinking, oh, this is minus 5, I'm going to add 5. No. Okay? This is multiply. They're touching. The opposite of multiply is divide. We're going to divide. Don't do division like this. It'll make your life easier if you just use a line for divide. Divide by negative 5. Oops. 5 over 5 is just 1. So we have y. We know two negatives make a positive. And 65 divided by 5. Well, I know 5 goes into 60 12 times, like a clock. 5 sections in each 12 sections on the clock. But one more would give us 13. Alright, next, here's a fraction. To get rid of this fraction, we are going to multiply by the reciprocal. So instead of 2 over 3, we want to get rid of this fraction and not this one, because we're trying to get this letter m all by itself. So we want to get rid of this fraction. So we're going to multiply by 3 over 2. Multiply by 3 over 2. And I've taught you before, this negative, put it with either the 4 or the 3, but not both. So I'm going to just put it with the 4. If we made both negatives, two negatives would make a positive, and we don't want that. So we know 3 over 3 makes 1, 2 over 2 makes 1, so we just have 1m or m. On the top, 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, and 2 times 3 is 6. So 12 divided by 6 is 2, and it's negative. Couple more. Draw your line. This line means divide. The opposite of divide is multiply. So we're going to multiply by 4.6 on both sides. This is really on the top, so those cancel out. Make one n or just n. And then I'm going to use my calculator. Negative 2.5 times 4.6. And I get negative 11.5. Make sure when you type this negative into the calculator, use the negative that's in parentheses. Next, this is really a negative 1a. They're touching there, so that's really multiplied. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by negative 1. So those cancel out, leave us with just a. Two negatives we know make a positive. 12 divided by 1 is just 12. Down here we have the exact same thing. This is really a negative 1. The opposite of multiplying here is divide, so we're going to divide by that number, that whole number, not just 1, negative 1. Those cancel. 19 divided by 1 is still 19, but it's a negative. And last one on this slide. Again, here's a negative. Put it with either the 4 or the 5. I'm going to put it with the 4. To get rid of this fraction, we need to multiply by the reciprocal, or flipping the fraction. 5 over negative 4 times 5 over negative 4. So these cancel out. 4 over 4 is just 1. 5 over 5 is just 1. So we have v. 8 times 5 is 40. On the bottom, negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. So 40 divided by 4 is 10, but it's negative. Moving right along, solve the equation. This one, just get t by itself. The opposite of subtracting 2 is adding 2. So we have t, and 6 plus 2 is 8. Hopefully that one wasn't too tough. This is the same exact equation except with a 0.1 and a 0.2 here. We get p by itself. The opposite of adding this time is subtracting. Those eliminate and make 0. These are all negative, same sign, add and keep. Negative 1 and, 1 plus 2 is 3. 6 plus 2 is 8. They're all negative, so negative 8.3. Alright, next, this last one here says, find x when you're given the area. Well, we know the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So our area right here is 72. Our base is 16 times our height, which is x, and it's all divided by 2. So if I go to solve this, first I need to get rid of this division. The opposite of division is multiply. So I can multiply by 2 on both sides. 2 times 72 is going to give me 144. And then last, the opposite of multiply is divide. 144 divided by 16 gives me 9. Now we're moving on to two-step equations. Same thing as one-step equation. We're still going to set it up the same. Draw your line. We're trying to get x all by itself. We're really doing the order of operations backwards. We're going this way. So first we need to get rid of that addition or subtraction, then multiplication and division. So first, this is multiplied, this is added. We need to get rid of that addition. So subtract 9, do the opposite of what you see. We have 5x. 24, take away 9. If you're not sure, use your calculator. Should give us 15. And last, the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. 15 divided by 5 gives us 3. Same thing over here. This is multiplied, this is added. We need to get rid of that addition or subtraction first. So subtract 1.2. We have 1.1p. 6 minus 2 is 4. 5 minus 1 is 4. So last up, this is multiplied. The opposite is divide. So those cancel out. We have p. Well, 1.1 goes into 4.4 exactly 4 times. Let's try a couple more. Draw your line down. This one, it's really 12 minus q. This is really 1q. So I can't get rid of that negative because it's a multiplication right there. This is really a positive 12, so to get rid of that first, we do the opposite and subtract 12. 11 take away 12, there's more negatives, there's one more negative, and then here we have negative 1q. We know this is multiply. The opposite of multiply is divide. Ooh, stuck. What just happened? There we go. Divide by negative 1. Those cancel out, give us 1q. And negative 1 divided by negative 1 is also a 1. Alright. I would suggest trying this one on your own. Pause the video and then try it when you are finished. Over here, we need to get rid of first our addition and subtraction, so I'm going to subtract 4 because it's adding 4. Those cancel, and we have 2 over 7n, and 10 minus 4 is 6. Then this is multiply, the opposite is going to be divide, but this is really a fraction, so we're not dividing, we're multiplying by the reciprocal, or flipping the fraction. 7 over 2. 7 over 7, 2 over 2, those cancel out. 6 times 7 is 42. 2 times 1 is 2. So 42 divided by 2 is 21. Alright, this next one we need to set up the equation. It says, Mai has a job where she makes $8 per hour plus tips. Yesterday, Mai made $53. $13 of which was from tips. How many hours did she work? So let's set up an equation. We know she made a total of $53. She makes $8 per hour, so she makes 8 every time an hour goes by. So 8 times the number of hours, plus she makes $13 in tips. How many hours did she work? So we need to figure out H, the number of hours. So let's solve this. Get rid of your addition or subtraction first. Subtract 13. We have 8H equals now 40. And then last, the opposite of multiply is divide. So 8 times 5 gives us 40. Alright, let's move on. A couple more. These ones are also two-step equations, but notice there's more than one letter. So if we have more than one letter, we need to combine our like terms first. 4W plus 2 more W, like whales, 4 whales plus 2 whales gives us 6 whales. And then all we have is multiply, the opposite is divide. So we have W equals, and 24 divided by 6 is 4. Same thing over here. Combine your like terms. 8t minus 3, well 8 minus 3 is 5t. And then the opposite of multiply here is divide. So those cancel, we have t. 35 divided by 5 is 7. There we go. One more like this. Again, combine your like terms. 5b, that negative goes with whatever comes after it, minus 9. 5 minus 9, there's more negatives. It's negative 4b. And the opposite of multiply here is going to be divide. Divide by negative 4 on both sides. Don't add, this is really multiply. So let's cancel. 2 negatives make a positive, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. Next, solving two-step equation. Get rid of addition or subtraction first. This is really what's added because this is really multiplied. So subtract 16. We have negative 2.4a. And these are all negatives. Add them up. 16 plus 8 more. It's going to give me a negative 24. And this isn't 24, it's 2.4. So this is multiplied. We need to divide by negative 2.4. So those cancel and we have a. Now it looks like it's just 1. However, we want 2.4 going into 24. So 24 divided by 2.4 is going to give us 10. Alright, I believe this last problem, yep, it says scuba diving. A scuba diver descends means going down, into deep water. The pressure of the water on the diver's body steadily increases. This is all good information, however, it doesn't help us with writing an equation. The pressure at the surface of the water is 2,117 pounds per square foot. So that's where we're starting out, at the surface of the water, the top. The pressure increases at a rate of 64 pounds per square foot for each foot the diver descends or goes down. So 64 for each foot of water. Find the depth at which a diver experiences a pressure of 8,517 pounds per square foot. So let's write an equation. We know they have to get here to the end at the bottom of 8,517. We know they're starting over here at 2,117. But every time they go down, they're adding more and more pressure, 64 multiplied by the number of feet that you're going down. So if we solve this, let's get rid of just our addition or subtraction. So let's subtract 2,117. We have 64f. That makes 0, 0, 5 minus 1 is 4, 8 minus 2 is 6. Well, that turned out nicely. The opposite of multiply is divide. If we divide 6,400 by 64, we should get exactly 100. 100, what? We're talking about feet. So this is 100 feet below the surface of the water. Here is your assignment. It is out of the book.